Hello again, friends, and welcome into another edition of Wrestling with Rusty right here on YouTube for May 8th, 2024. Welcome in. And this is another example of pro wrestling not policing itself. Many years ago, Ric Flair had a number of health issues physically and was in a coma, had a heart attack. I think there was some alleged comments that he had a heart attack during his last match in 2021 and various other things before that in which he almost died. And in this instance that I'm about to tell you about, he didn't almost die, but he made an ass out of himself, which Ric Flair is pretty regular about most days at autograph signings and other types of public appearances. Well, a few days ago, and I'm sorry to be late on this, but my personal life has got in the way and I've been a little sick with a cough. Please pray for me. But long story short, my personal, you already know my personal life got in the way. Basically, Ric Flair, who now lives in Tampa and has lived in Tampa many years with his on again, off again girlfriend or wife, depending upon which story you believe, Wendy. Ric Flair was in a Tampa bar / pizza shop and got into an argument with staff there. I don't know if it was a bartender or who it was, but it doesn't matter. And subsequently said, "Do you know who I am? Tell them who I am, or do they know who I am, or who I are, or something like that," in a loud, disorderly conduct type rage. And they asked him to leave. Somewhere in there, he spilled liquor on a 4-year-old child and was yelling and screaming and all other sorts of things. But this is another example of people don't cancel people in the wrestling industry until they murder somebody like a Chris Benoit. And I'm not saying Chris Benoit shouldn't have been canceled, but what I'm saying is they wait until something even more tragic than this happens before they stop booking you. If people took Ric Flair off of television and stopped booking him for endorsement deals and things like that he currently has, and has tremendous wealth that he has rebranded himself several times and got himself from being damn near broke to pretty wealthy now. If they stopped booking him and took him away from those personal appearances and television and pro wrestling related signings like autograph signings and things of that nature, then maybe Ric Flair would straighten up. I don't know. That's just my opinion. Your opinion might be different, but the bottom line is there's usually no consequences for Ric Flair. Pardon the analogy here, but kind of reminds me of O.J. Simpson. There was no consequences for O.J. Simpson for many years, long before the murders of Nicole Brown and Ron Goldman. And he didn't get found guilty in the criminal trial. He was found guilty in the civil trial, but that's only a monetary penalty. And he didn't actually go to jail until he robbed a bank not a bank, but robbed sports memorabilia. I'm misspeaking. He robbed sports memorabilia dealers and past friends on tape, audio and videotape, and finally went to jail for that and spent 9 years in prison. The analogy I'm trying to make for this video is people just throw Ric Flair out of bars and stuff and tell him don't come back and this kind of thing, but they still put Ric Flair back on television. They still sign him to endorsement deals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. and there's no consequences for his actions for most of it, much like O.J. Simpson had no consequences for many years. Now, I know Ric Flair didn't kill anybody, but it's still a bad mark on the professional wrestling industry, a bad mark on the entertainment industry, and a bad mark for a pro wrestling legend to act like that in public and to basically be a child in a man's body. And that doesn't discount that Ric Flair was one of the best pro wrestlers in the history of pro wrestling when he was a pro wrestler for more than 40 years. But there comes a time when we all have to grow up. You might get older, but some people never grow up. And I think in Ric Flair's case, he's gotten older, but he's never grown up. And he's an alcoholic, and he's a man drunk not only on alcohol, but drunk on power. And given his past inability to handle his alcohol, and given his past coma and heart attacks and other medical issues that he's had in the past, you would think that those severe medical issues and damn near death would make him straighten up. However, it hasn't in most cases. He still thinks he can do whatever he wants, when he wants. He's even been in videos. He's appeared at NFL games as well. He's an icon not only in pro wrestling, but he's an icon in every other form of entertainment that you can think of, just like Hulk Hogan is. Or The Rock. But that being said, this conduct cannot and should not continue, and it cannot and should not be tolerated. But unfortunately, I think you'll have to continue being an ass like this and do something worse before the pro wrestling industry or the entertainment industry cancel Ric Flair. Again, that doesn't take away from his past pro wrestling abilities. Most say, myself included, that from a wrestling standpoint, you would have to put Ric Flair on your Mount Rushmore of professional wrestlers. But when people ask me what kind of person Ric Flair is, since I met him personally back in the 70s and again in the 80s, I say it this way. Ric Flair back then was a pretty good person, but somewhere between the 80s and the 90s, fast forward to the present day as well, in 2024 and even years before 2024, Ric Flair is one sorry human being. And at what point is he going to have to pay for his mistakes? Does he get a free pass like O.J. Simpson? I know Ric Flair probably isn't going to murder anybody like O.J. Simpson. But the O.J. Simpson analogy that I was making is O.J. Simpson got a pass on a lot of things long before the murders. And even though Ric Flair probably isn't going to murder anybody, how many times does Ric Flair get a pass in pro wrestling? How many times does Ric Flair get a pass in entertainment? And how many times does Ric Flair get a pass in life? We've all heard the expression, if you choose the behavior, you choose the consequences, says Dr. Phil. Well, in this case, that's not the case. But anyway, that's going to do it for me. Rusty, I'm out of here. We'll see you next time. And until we meet again, my friends, God bless. And special thanks to Special Investigator Raymond Tipton for tipping me off to this issue. Thank you, Raymond, for your past, present, and future assistance with the channel. Please remember to like the videos on the channel. Subscribe to the channel if you hadn't done so already. It's free of charge. And email me at rusty.loudermilk@yahoo.com or call me at 724-826-0449. Thank you very much, everybody. Take care. God bless. And happy wrestling, everybody. Ric Flair, you suck.